Okay, completing this square. Completing the square is not part of the actual exam, but it does make things easier. Okay, so to complete the square, okay, we can do it with any quadratic. However, we usually do it with one that we can't factorize, right? So there's not anything that multiplies to be 1 and adds to 4. It doesn't work. We could use the quadratic formula, but let's try doing this a different way. So to complete the square, okay, step 1, okay, is we want to get our x's all on one side. X's on one side. Okay, so I'm going to subtract 1. So then I get x squared plus 4x equals -1. Okay, so step 1 is to divide by a. Okay, so in this equation, this is not a super necessary step because our a is 1, so dividing by 1 is just going to leave us with this. But if this was a 2x or 3x or anything else besides just a single x, we need to divide everything by 1. Okay, well that step is done. Then we need to get x's on one side, so -1. And then we're left with x squared plus 4x equals -1. From here, we want to complete the square. So, step 3, complete square. Okay, and we're not going to dive into it now, but our shortcut is to divide b by 2 and then square it. Okay, so we're trying to fill out this missing side so we could factorize this. Okay, so if we take b divided by 2 and then we square it, 4 divided by 2 is 2, 2 squared is 4. Okay, and we are going to add that back in. So add that in. Okay, so if I go x squared plus 4x plus 4, well, whatever I did on the left side, I need to do on the right side. So I have this -1, and I also need a plus 4. So we need to add that in on both sides. Okay, and then we simplify. Okay, so now we factor left. Okay, or we can just say factor and simplify. So from here, x squared plus 4x plus 4, well, the whole reason we did this is because that factorizes easily into x plus 2 squared equals -1 plus -1 plus 4 is going to be 3. From here, okay, we want to solve for x. Okay, if we just squared this thing, we'd end up with this. We're not any closer. So what we can do is take the square root of both sides, and we're left with x plus 2 equals, and because we're taking a square root, it's plus or minus root 3. All right, and then to solve for x, it's going to be x equals -2 plus or minus root 3. And that is your answer. Okay? Okay. Try these and come back when you're done. Okay, so for here, step 1 is divided by our a term, which is nothing. It's just 1. So we can skip that. And then we want to get our x's on one side, so we're going to get x squared minus x equals 13. Okay, and then we take b divided by 2 squared. Well, b is negative 1 divided by 2 squared. So we're going to get negative 1/2 squared is just going to be 1/4. Okay, so x squared minus x plus 1/4 equals 13. Plus 1/4. Okay, this is going to factorize in to this. Well, that's going to factorize into x minus 1/2 squared equals 13 and 1/4. Okay, square root both sides. So x equals, x minus 1/2 equals root 13 and 1/4, or 13.25 if you want, plus or minus. So x equals 1/2 plus or minus 13 and 1/4. Okay, now we could put that in a calculator and we would get negative 3.14 and 4.14. All right, and then let's do this one. Okay, this one's a little bit tougher because we have a coefficient of 2 here. But let's not let that scare us. Okay, so our first step is divide everything by 2. So we get x and the 0 divided by 2. X squared minus 3/2 x minus 2 equals 0. Okay, then we want to get our x's on its own, so x squared minus 3/2 x equals 2. Okay, now we divide this one by 2 and square it, so negative 3/2 divided by 2 squared. Okay, so let's take a little, if we had negative 3/2 divided by 2, that's the same thing as negative 3/2 times 1/2. So we get negative 3/4. So negative 3/4 squared. So we get positive x squared minus 3/2 x plus 9/16 equals 2 plus 9/16. Okay, and we factorize this. Well, this is going to be this divided by 2. So what this will factorize into is x squared minus 3/4. Okay, so whatever we get on the inside, whatever we got up here, that goes down here. It's x squared minus 3/4. Or x minus 3/4 squared equals, let's leave this as 2 and 9/16 for now. Okay, we take the square root of both sides. We get x minus 3/4 equals plus or minus 2 and 9/16. Okay, so x equals 3/4 plus or minus 2 and 9/16, and this is our most correct answer. Okay, but if we plug that into a calculator, we will get 2.35 and negative 0.85. All right. So what I'll say about completing the square is it can be a lot of work, but we'll see when it becomes necessary when we start graphing. All right. But it has a lot to do with this b term. All right. So it is good practice to be able to complete the square.